Hey there, welcome back to Story Slices, where we slice through the best Reddit tales just for you. Let's dive right into the first story. The first one is the Tittle story, and it starts like this. 5 years ago, I purchased a beautiful 5-acre property on the edge of our semi-rural community. The hillside lot had everything I wanted: privacy, stunning views, and enough space for my dream project, a small cabin retreat where I could disconnect from the world. Before buying, I did my homework. Yes, the property fell within an HOA boundaries, but it was on the outer edge where restrictions seemed minimal. I carefully reviewed all the HOA documents and found nothing prohibiting a small structure on my own land. The monthly dues were reasonable at $75, mainly covering road maintenance and some common areas I rarely used. I've always been good with my hands. My grandfather taught me carpentry when I was young, and I've spent years honing those skills. Building this cabin wasn't just a project, it was my passion. I designed a modest 400-square-foot structure that would blend with the natural surroundings. Using reclaimed timber from a local barn demolition and other sustainable materials, I wanted something that looked like it belonged on that hillside. The county permitting process was exhaustive. I filed every required document, paid all fees, and even had environmental studies done to ensure I wouldn't disturb any protected species. The cabin design included solar panels, rainwater collection, and composting facilities. I wanted to tread lightly on the land. After receiving all approvals, I started building 3 years ago, working weekends and vacation days. It took nearly 3 years of weekends, but watching that cabin take shape log by log was the most satisfying thing I've ever done. My neighbors seemed supportive. The couple down the hill would wave when they saw my truck heading up on Saturdays. An older gentleman who lived nearby often hiked past and would stop to chat about my progress, telling me stories about how the area looked decades ago. The finished cabin was everything I dreamed of. The main room had floor-to-ceiling windows facing west for sunset views. A small wood stove for heat, a compact kitchen area, and a loft bedroom made it perfectly functional without feeling cramped. I even built a small deck where I could sit and watch hawks circling above the valley. The entire structure was nestled among the trees, barely visible from most angles unless you knew exactly where to look. Everything changed about 6 months ago when our HOA elected a new president. From what neighbors told me, the previous board had been relaxed, focusing mainly on road maintenance and keeping the community entrance presentable. The new president had moved from a strictly controlled suburban development and apparently brought those expectations with him. I first noticed something was off when I spotted someone with a clipboard hiking near my property line one Saturday morning. I waved, thinking it might be a lost hiker, but they quickly turned and headed back down the trail. A week later, I received my first official HOA complaint letter. According to this letter, my cabin constituted an unauthorized structure that violated HOA bylaws. Specifically, it cited a rule about aesthetic uniformity of structures visible from community areas. The letter demanded I cease using the cabin immediately and threatened daily fines of $150 for noncompliance. I was stunned. After 3 years of open construction, with all proper permits displayed at the site as required by the county, suddenly my cabin was a problem? I called the number listed for the HOA president and explained the situation, mentioning my thorough review of HOA documents before building and all my county approvals. "County permits don't override HOA rules," he told me dismissively. "The previous board may have been lax in enforcement, but I'm conducting a full review of all properties. Your structure clearly violates our aesthetic guidelines." When I asked which specific guideline, he directed me to a vague clause about maintaining the visual character of the community. I pointed out that my cabin was barely visible from any common area, and was constructed with natural materials specifically chosen to blend with the environment. "That's your opinion," he replied. "The board has determined otherwise." I requested to present my case at the next HOA meeting, which he reluctantly agreed to. In the meantime, I gathered all my documentation: original HOA covenants, county permits, environmental approvals, and photos showing how the cabin blended with its surroundings. The monthly HOA meeting was held in our community clubhouse, a place I'd rarely visited since moving in. About 20 residents attended, mostly older couples who'd lived in the community for years. The president sat at the front table with 4 other board members, all looking uncomfortably formal for our small rural community. When my agenda item came up, I calmly presented my case. I explained my careful planning, showed all my permits, and passed around photos of the finished cabin. "As you can see," I concluded, "the structure complies with all county regulations, uses sustainable materials, and was designed specifically to have minimal visual impact on the landscape. I found nothing in our HOA guidelines prohibiting such a structure before I began construction." Before anyone else could respond, the president interjected. "The issue isn't whether you had permits. The issue is that your structure doesn't conform to community standards. It's visible from the North Ridge hiking trail, which is a community area. Barely visible, I corrected, and the trail itself runs along the edge of my property line. One board member, an older woman, asked to see the photos again. It looks quite nice, actually. I don't see how this is hurting anyone. The president cut her off. The bylaws are clear about maintaining aesthetic uniformity. If we allow one non-conforming structure, we'll have no grounds to prevent others. A few neighbors nodded in agreement, though I noticed several others looking uncomfortable. One man I recognized from down the street raised his hand. I hike that trail regularly, and I barely notice the cabin. It actually fits in better than some of the mansions being built closer to the entrance. I don't see the problem. The president looked annoyed. We need to be consistent in enforcing our guidelines. The board has already reviewed this case. It became clear that most board members had never actually seen my cabin in person. They were basing their opinions solely on what the president told them. Despite my documentation and support from a few neighbors, the board voted 4-1 to uphold the violation notice. The lone dissenting vote came from the older woman who'd admired my photos. As the meeting ended, she quietly told me, "This isn't right. Some people just want to throw their weight around." Over the next few weeks, the situation escalated. I received weekly violation notices, each threatening increasing fines. According to these notices, I now owed over $2,000 in penalties. I sent formal responses contesting each fine, citing specific sections of the HOA covenant and county law, but received no substantive reply. Then I discovered something truly disturbing. My security cameras caught someone on my property early one morning when I was away at work. Reviewing the footage, I recognized the HOA president walking around my cabin, taking photos, and even testing the door handle. In another instance, he was examining the deck supports, appearing to take measurements. This wasn't just enforcement, it was harassment and trespassing. I installed additional cameras and no trespassing signs, but the intrusions continued. The most alarming incident came when camera footage showed him actually prying at some of the deck boards, apparently trying to find or create structural issues. Around this time, I received notice that the HOA had placed a lien on my property for unpaid fines. This crossed a line. It could affect my ability to refinance or sell my property in the future. I needed serious help. A friend from college had become a real estate attorney, so I called him to explain my situation. After reviewing my documents, he immediately spotted several issues with the HOA approach. First, he told me, they can't just declare something violates aesthetic guidelines without having clear, objective standards. Second, they can't selectively enforce rules after years of allowing construction. And third, they absolutely cannot trespass on your property. But the most interesting thing he discovered came when digging through county records. My property, along with about 10 others on the outer boundary of the development, had never been properly annexed into the HOA jurisdiction. There had been a filing error when that section was developed 15 years ago, and the paperwork was never corrected. Technically, my friend explained, they have no authority to regulate your property at all. You've been paying dues voluntarily, but legally, you're not bound by their covenants. This was the break I needed. With my friend's help, I developed a plan. First, we gathered official documentation from county records showing the annexation error. Next, I compiled all the security footage showing the president's trespassing and attempted vandalism. Finally, we drafted a formal legal letter outlining the jurisdictional issue, the harassment, and the illegitimacy of their fines and lien. Rather than sending this directly to the board, I requested to speak at the next HOA meeting, which was scheduled in 2 weeks. During that time, I quietly reached out to neighbors, particularly those with properties in the same unannexed section as mine. Many were surprised to learn about the jurisdictional issue and concerned about the president's overreach. The response was overwhelming. At the next meeting, attendance tripled. I recognized faces of people I'd barely seen before, all concerned about what they'd heard. The president looked visibly uncomfortable as the room filled. When my turn came to speak, I was calm and prepared. I started by addressing the board respectfully. I've discovered some information that affects not just my situation but potentially the entire community, I began. Before I share these findings, I want to be clear that my goal is resolution, not confrontation. I presented the annexation documentation first, explaining how it affected the outer properties including mine. Several neighbors nodded as they recognized their own situations. Then, I addressed the harassment. I've been reluctant to share this publicly, I said, but I feel the community should know. I connected my laptop to the projector and played selected clips of the president trespassing on my property and tampering with my deck. The room fell silent. The president's face turned red as he tried to interrupt. "Those are unauthorized recordings," he sputtered. "There's security footage from my own property," I countered, "taken after I posted no trespassing signs." An older resident stood up. "Is that why you told us the structure was unsafe? Because you were trying to damage it yourself?" The meeting erupted in crosstalk. Several board members looked shocked, clearly unaware of these actions. The secretary called for order, and once things calmed down, I continued. I have prepared a full legal brief outlining these issues, I said, distributing copies to the board. But I'm not here to threaten legal action. I'm proposing a resolution. The HOA acknowledges the jurisdictional error, removes all fines and liens related to my property, and establishes clear guidelines for future board conduct, including prohibiting unauthorized property inspections. The vice president, who had been quiet until now, asked for a brief recess so the board could confer. They left the room for nearly 30 minutes while residents discussed the revelations among themselves. When the board returned, the vice president took the lead. In light of this new information, we moved to rescind all violations and fines related to this property, remove any liens, and conduct a full review of our jurisdiction and enforcement procedures. The motion passed unanimously, with the president noticeably abstaining. After the meeting, several neighbors approached to express their support and share their own stories of run-ins with the new president. One woman told me he'd threatened fines over her garden gnome collection. Another mentioned receiving violations for holiday decorations that had been tradition for years. The fallout came quickly. Within a week, the president resigned from the board, citing personal reasons. 2 other board members who had been his strongest allies also stepped down. The vice president became interim president and called for new elections. During the transition, something interesting emerged. A neighbor who worked for the county building department mentioned that the former president had constructed a significant addition to his home last year, without proper permits. I didn't make this information public but quietly passed it along to the appropriate county office. They would handle it according to their procedures. The newly elected board took a much different approach to governance. They implemented a rule requiring physical inspection and photographic documentation before issuing any violation notices. They also created a more transparent appeals process and began reviewing the community guidelines to make them clearer and more objective. As for my cabin, it became something of a local point of interest. The new board asked if I would mind hosting a small community event there to show how sustainable, low-impact structures could be both beautiful and functional. I agreed, and on a perfect autumn Saturday, about 15 neighbors hiked up to see the cabin firsthand. Looking around at people admiring the reclaimed wood beams and asking questions about the solar setup, I felt a sense of vindication. The elderly neighbor who often hiked past during construction raised a toast with his lemonade. To standing your ground without losing your principles, he said. Not many people can do both. In the months since then, life has largely returned to normal. I spend weekends at my cabin in peace. The HOA has adopted a more collaborative approach to community issues. My property remains technically outside their jurisdiction, though I still voluntarily contribute to road maintenance. The former president eventually sold his house and moved away after dealing with county fines for his unpermitted addition. I heard he found a condo in a development with even stricter rules, perhaps a better fit for his personality. The most unexpected outcome was that 2 other property owners in our section have approached me about helping design small, sustainable structures for their land. With the county's blessing and support from the new HOA board, it seems our little corner of the community might become a showcase for thoughtful, environmentally conscious building practices. Looking back, I realized this conflict wasn't really about my cabin. It was about someone using rules as weapons rather than tools for community well-being. By standing firm while remaining respectful, I not only protected what I had built but helped reshape how our community governs itself. Sometimes, teaching someone a lesson isn't about revenge, it's about creating positive change. As I sit on my deck watching the sunset, listening to the distant sounds of neighbors and wildlife, I'm grateful for this hard-won peace. I built this cabin with my own 2 hands, and now I can enjoy it knowing it stands on solid ground, both literally and legally. The next one is entitled People Story. So I'm a 20-year-old man with autism. Yeah, I know, shocker, right? Unless I tell you, you'd never guess I have it. I can take care of myself. I have a car, I live on my own, I have a high-paying job, I'm at college getting A's, and I'm on the roster for my local hockey team. Why does this matter? Because this is not what my girlfriend has experienced. My girlfriend has a brother with low-functioning autism and has had a history of yelling, breaking things and giving their family stress. They love him, but I can tell it's a painful experience. So, what's the point of this post? Well, I met my girlfriend 4 months ago from a friend of mine and 2 months later we started dating and I was happy, and so was she. One time we went to her cousin's house with her family and her brother was really having a bad day. He started screaming and yelling for 10 minutes straight. So my girlfriend went outside stressed out and I followed. We went for a walk and she started saying she can't imagine being in a relationship with someone with autism. I should now mention I never told her I had autism. I mean, would you? People don't even know there's different levels of autism, but they think it's kids screaming and other things I won't go on about since I don't want to waste time. After she said that, Everything just went quiet after that until I broke the silence and said, what if, hypothetically, he was high-functioning? She said that she wouldn't because she's seen high-functioning people with autism but could tell there was something off with them. I found it confusing she said this since with a brother with autism, you'd think she would do research and find out there are people who, like me, have autism but would never guess we have it. But she loves him so, yeah. Anyway, the reason I never told her I had it is because I did not want her judging me. My friends were shocked I told them but still remained friends and said they think I'm normal and fun to hang with. Why did I tell them? Because I want to educate people showing there are different levels of autism. So why not when dating? Because there was a girl who was interested in me until I told her and then she stopped being interested. So now you can see where I'm coming from. You may ask why bother? Because I do autistic traits, such as pacing, repeating something over again, and not doing well with social skills. If I had to say my social skills are great but when it comes to setting up appointments for example I get frustrated. She has picked on this and asked me and I told her that pacing helps me think. Sometimes I repeat things because I don't know I just do, and I told her I'm not that great being social. I am, just not at certain things. She still said she liked me with all my flaws, and I think it's time I tell her I have autism so that she understand what I do and say and that I can talk to her and have her support me. She's been thankful I've been in her life and helped her with depression and giving up my time for her, so I just hope she's ready to hear it and understand. I'm just afraid she will leave me. Should I tell her? Or not? I feel like she has a right to know since she's with me and I don't have to constantly explain myself. Update earlier today I posted about if should tell my girlfriend I have autism. Originally she never wanted to date someone with autism because her brother had low-functioning autism and it drove her mad, even though she loved him. She has never experienced a high-functioning person with autism until she met me. But when we started dating I was too scared to tell her and even more scared when she said she did not want to date someone on the spectrum. When she got home we had a convo and I told her I was on the spectrum, and she started to cry apologizing for what she said a few weeks back. I told her it was okay, and we hugged. She was happy I told her because then she was able to understand some traits I do and have a different look about autism. Thank you guys for helping me find the courage to tell her. Now I'm sure our relationship will grow stronger. Keep changing people's lives and making others happy. Just want to add one more thing. My girlfriend had a reason to say what she said. Living with someone with autism depending on the level is very stressful. He is low functioning. So imagine having a child/sibling who cries, breaks things, and you have to keep an eye out for them when in public at all times. She was unaware of the different levels of autism and said she will learn more about it for me and her brother. This is why I love her. The next one is entitled People Story. Going to start this out now with the preamble that I'm feeling like an absolute piece of trash right now, completely used, raw, and absolutely shell-shocked. Using all fake names, obviously. I've never posted here so I don't know if that's implied. I met Ray back when I was 18 years old. He was in a band that I absolutely loved, grew up with. I had even had a crush on him for so long before we met. You can imagine how excited I was to be able to work with him. I had a small part in working on one of his music videos way back when, interning at the production firm that he had hired with his band. We soon started dating after that, pretty inseparable. I would always hang out with him at the studio and spend time with Ray in his place or mine just walking around stoned, happy, and in love. He basically coached me through both my undergraduate and MFA. 3 years ago, I moved in with Ray, and that has been the same situation since. I have recently been freelance writing for a couple news publications overseas/working on selling some screenplays to some studios, and it has been such a strain on me lately, but Ray had been being so good to me lately, a total sweetheart. Ray is constantly on tour/working with friends/partners in California. We live in the Northeast. I'm used to him not being home or not having a necessarily consistent schedule. I don't really either. I'm sometimes in California myself with some production work I do with my old cinematographer partner. The arrangement was always nice, and it felt really good to be with someone who understood how hard it is to manage a life on a creative schedule. Honestly, I figured once Ray got back from his business trip, he was going to propose to me. I know that's stupid to just assume that, but after how well things had been going with us, I was really just getting this overwhelming feeling of love and hope that I was just so excited about. However, the other day, week ago at this point, I was browsing Ray's Instagram looking for a specific picture, and I noticed the tagged pictures tab on the top of the page. I'm kind of illiterate at social media stuff. At this point, Ray was in California overseeing some stuff with his new merch or whatever. I felt myself missing him a lot, so I thought seeing some funny, candid pictures of him would cheer me up/remind me of how cute he is. So, I click on the tab and scroll down a little bit. I see a picture of this cute blonde woman, Katie, kissing his cheek. I didn't think anything of it at first. He's a relatively popular musician, not like getting on any charts anywhere, but a lot of people in a specific scene at least know of him. So, Thought it was just another fan. But, when I scroll down more, I see more and more pictures of this woman and him. I click on the picture for who she's tagged as, I click her profile. I'm blocked? Immediately, I got a bad gut feeling. I ended up logging out of my account and into my company's. I know. Scummy, but now it seems worth it. I click on her profile, and I almost throw up. Basically, besides a couple pictures of food, scenery, or shopping haul shots, it's just all pics of either her and Ray or just Ray. I do some more digging and I see that her and Ray are fucking engaged. People are congratulating them. There's a pic of her holding up a hand with a ring up and you can see Ray in the background smiling. I wanna fucking die right now. It's been 3 days since Ray has gotten back from the trip, and I don't even know what to say. He knows that I'm upset about something, I think. He wanted to have sex when he finally got home. We always have a really fun romp once he comes back, but the thought of it made me fucking sick. I don't know how to talk to him about this. I know I'm just postponing something by doing this, but I honestly have no fucking clue how to approach my future. I honestly still love him so much and the thought of being without him right now makes my head want to explode. I don't even care that he was with someone else if he would just stop doing it and apologize. I understand that humans are not inherently monogamous, and hell, I've thought about other people and even kissed someone one time during a LSD trip a couple years ago. I never told him about that either. But this seems really unacceptable and I feel really disrespected. How could he just have this entire secret life and just hide it for so many years? As far back in her timeline I scrolled, 5 years. They had clearly been dating. I wonder if they've been together the entire time me and Ray were together. I know this is so long and rambly, but I just need help deciding where I go from here. We live together, and I don't really have housing in the area right now that would be easy for me to just go, you know? Should I just pretend I don't know anything until I can find another place and then just unload then? Should I try to talk to him now and see what's going on? Update clearly, it's been a wild time since this post for me. I just want to thank everyone for reaching out to me in comments, messages, and even some off-Reddit contact I still have with some users. You all are gems and offered me tough advice in a time where I never thought I'd listen. I realize now I was completely manipulated by Ray for many years. I thought our relationship was common for two creative professionals. It wasn't. After I made that post, Ray was needed out in California again. It was the perfect opportunity for me to pack up all my shit and leave. Once I collected my thoughts, I reached out to my longtime friend John, actually my age, now 30, who lived in Portland at the time. He flew out to the East Coast city I used to live in with fancy maple syrup, whiskey, and my favorite coffee. I'll always remember this little detail. John helped me pack up everything, arranged transportation for me to fly back with him, and my cat, to live in Oregon with him, and brought me to the coast to bury a bunch of memories, photos, film reels, memory cards, etc. It was extremely cathartic. I was sober, feeling every bit of pain in that moment, but realizing it needed to happen. Once in Portland, Ray obviously came back to our former apartment and realized I was gone. Per John's idea, the only thing I left on the kitchen counter was my set of keys and a printed out picture of Kat with the engagement ring. I had blocked his number, but Ray continuously tried to contact me, first in fake consideration for my safety, then getting progressively angrier with me. He did not apologize a single time. He just got more threatening and said he was going to hire a private investigator to find me. John ended up hiring a lawyer for me to walk me through my legal options and spoke to the police about a restraining order, which we did file. It appears the order worked, considering Ray has not reached out to me since he was notified. I know some of you probably wanted me to tell Kat. I'll be honest, I never did. I'm sure she eventually found out, or maybe she didn't. I have no idea what happened with them, and I have no urge to. You were all correct. I had known some of his friends, but only professionally from working with them. He rarely took me out to social events. I did know his family, though. They were always pleasantly nice to me, but they lived so far away geographically that I only saw them for very special occasions. I don't know if they knew, but I don't want to hurt myself thinking about the disrespect and secrecy of everyone. I was lied to not only by Ray, but by a group of people who I thought respected me. I found a therapist who helped me process a great deal of these emotions, but I am certainly not completely healed. I finally feel able to talk about this with you all 1.5 years later. It simultaneously feels like it happened just yesterday and a million years ago. Some of it feels like an extended nightmare. All I know is that I'm awake now. Unfortunately, I did end up getting tested and diagnosed with HPV, which has since been treated, but I definitely got it from Ray. I was arrested that night for disorderly conduct as well because I got belligerently drunk in anger. I was sentenced to anger management classes and AA meetings. I was certainly not a full-blown alcoholic, but I realized I was numbing my pain with what I thought was recreational drinking. I have been sober for a year now, just got my year chip last week. Overall, this is a happy ending for me, I promise. I started dating John at the beginning of this year. I now understand what being in an actual loving relationship feels like. John is completely honest with me about everything. Even the smallest things. He respects me and understands my past. I can't begin to verbalize how thankful I am for him and how much I appreciate him being in my life. He is my rock and was there for me since my healing process began. For the record, I'm the one who initiated the romantic contact. We slept in separate rooms, had sex with other people, gave each other romantic advice. But at the beginning of the year, we were both single at the same time. He was making breakfast in the kitchen before he went off to teach. In that moment, I just realized he was always my what-if guy, since knowing him in college. I wanted him and I truly loved him. I asked him if I could kiss him, just overcome with emotion and a lost filter. He thought I was joking at first and barely looked away from his eggs. But then he was like, "Wait, really?" I said yes and gave him a huge hug. Then he kissed me. I felt this warmth I never experienced with Ray, even at our best. It felt like something finally clicked. Since then, John and I have been so happy, and now I know what it's like to be with your best friend, especially someone who knows you as well as he knows me. I couldn't be happier, and for the first time, I feel valuable. I went back to school part-time to learn some coding and stuck with it. Now, my current job is paying for me to continue my schooling, and I've been doing some web design work for them as well. My boss is the most amazing woman I've ever met and totally supportive. Guys, I feel whole. I really do. But even more importantly, I feel ready to deal with anything in my future, good or bad. I've grown up in a big way, and I feel like I'm not afraid of entering my 30s. I still have a way to go dealing with an eating disorder, but I've even gained some weight. I'm proud of myself, and I'm so thankful to everyone who has helped me at all. I'm not alone anymore. The next one is entitled People Story. Burner for privacy. My wife, 40F, grew up as a competitive athlete, squash, playing through college on an NCAA championship team. Her whole family is very into competitive sports. I, 47M, on the other hand, never had much interest. That's not to say that I was a couch potato. I was and have always been a frequent gym goer and into road cycling and skiing. For fun, not competition. We have a son, 11M. My wife put him into squash lessons/clinics starting at age 7. She's now started signing him up for tournaments. Even though this is mostly her doing, I am the one taking him to and from lessons/clinics, driving to tournaments, etc. I'm also essentially the person financially responsible for our entire lifestyle. With my separate money, I bought our houses, cars, pay all the utilities, insurance, school tuition. My wife makes close to 6 figures, gets to spend it all on whatever she wants and still usually has approximately $0 in her bank account. I'm not complaining about this, my income and wealth is multiples of hers, but this will be relevant later. I've noticed that our son seems kind of down when I have to take him to squash and more down after he's done it. He has a lot of other interests. He loves coding, he plays guitar, he likes to ski, he likes bouldering, and between that and school, he is a conscientious and good student. Time is very scarce. The same is true for me. But both my son and I are finding our ability to do these other activities is being interfered with by my wife's insistence about how much time goes into squash. I should say that my son is okay at it, but he is never going to play Division I college, so it's not like college admissions/scholarships are in play here. I think it is great if he can play the game socially later in life, but he could achieve that spending 25% of the time on it that he does. And certainly, we wouldn't need to burn whole weekends on tournaments. I've asked my wife to pick up more of the slack for shuttling him to squash stuff, but she always says she has work she needs to do that makes it impossible. Recently, my wife signed him up for a tournament which conflicted with a bouldering event he wanted to do. He was sad. I asked him, "Do you want to keep doing this much squash?" He said that he didn't, but he didn't want to disappoint his mom. I said I'd talk to her about it. She was resistant to letting him do less, saying that he would appreciate it once he pushes through. I told her that she needs to address this with our son and that in the meantime, I was done dedicating my time and money to squash. If she wanted him to do more than a lesson or 2 a week, she would have to bring him and pay for it out of her own money. And if our son refused to cooperate with her in doing more squash than he wants, I would not enforce any consequences. She says that it isn't fair. She doesn't have the same money or time available that I have. I said, if you feel this passionate about our son's squash, then you need to put your money and time where your mouth is and not just decree that our son needs to do it and I need to be the chauffeur. She thinks I am being an asshole about it and abusing my greater wealth and more flexible schedule. Actually, it is not more flexible. I am just way more efficient at getting work done and being able to work hunched over a laptop at the squash courts to get what I want. Wondering what the collective wisdom of the Reddit crowd thinks? Update. As I anticipated, when I pulled my money and time from supporting squash, she was either unwilling, my view, or unable, her view, to step up. Obviously, I saw that as a good thing. Since I feel my son wants, appropriately, to do less squash and more of his other interests, bouldering, skiing, guitar being the 3 big extracurriculars. But in the hopes of getting to a more consensual outcome, I told my wife that I would continue to take my son to 1 clinic and 1 lesson a week, no tournaments, for the interim. If she agreed to go to a bouldering session, to the drop-off or pick-up of a ski lesson, we go to a vacation home to ski over our spring break in March, just happened, and to a guitar lesson and at each to speak to the instructor to get their perspective on our son's interest and aptitude. Then she could compare it to how he seems to feel about, perform in squash. She agreed. And now that we are back from skiing, she's done all 3. The result was pretty much as I expected. All 3 teachers mentioned that he seemed incredibly passionate about the activity and that he was extremely coachable. The bouldering and ski teachers were clear he is probably not going to be some sort of champion, aptitude-wise, though the guitar teacher calls him one of his most talented students. In comparison, his squash coach says that he needs to bring more intensity to his efforts. Even to my squash-favoring wife, it was clear that her contention that he needs to just push through with squash does not match up with his immediate and enduring interest in and passion for his other activities. We've talked about it together and my wife agreed she'd follow our son's lead on squash. We asked him what his idea outcome is and he said that he'd like to continue squash at a low intensity so he can play it socially. He wants to do clinic once a week and once a week to play with his mom. He said that being able to play with her would be one of the main reasons for him to keep playing and that he had been disappointed she hadn't done it much. She said she didn't realize that but that it made her happy that he wants to play with her and she will make time. So we have what seems to be a solution. No more tournaments, 1 clinic a week and periodic mom and son hitting sessions. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow at Story Slices.